Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Singapore Art Museum. I'm Naomi from the programs team. We are delighted to have you join us for this special afternoon of poetry, which kicks off our programming celebrating the arrival of our exhibition publication for SAM Contemporaries, How to Dream Worlds. All copies purchased during the program today will receive a special 10% discount. You can speak to our colleague at the Museum Cafe for more details. This afternoon, we delve into the haunting, domestic, and unseen world of Masuri Mazlan's artwork, Can Haunting Be Another Way of Enduring? We are honored to host 4 Singaporean poets, Stephanie Dogfoot, Daryl Li, Daryl Lim Wei Jie, and Marylyn Tan, who will use their verses to engage with the intersections of identity and domesticity raised by Masuri's artwork. Also, please be aware that the program explores mature themes and is recommended for visitors aged 16 and above. Now, please join me in welcoming Masuri and our poets as they invite us to ponder the question, can poetry indeed be another way of haunting? Yes. Okay, so we'll begin our readings with Daryl Li. He's a writer of literary fiction and non-fiction. He's the author of essay collections like The Inventors and Tenderly Tenderly, and his acclaimed work has been awarded the Golden Point Award and long-listed for several major prizes. Our next poet, Marylyn Tan, is a large-breasted, supple, queer writer-artist whose debut collection, Gaze Back, made her the first woman poet to clinch the Singapore Literature Prize. Her work aims to subvert and reclaim power through its bold, inimitable voice. Our third poet, Stephanie Dogfoot, isn't able to be here today in person, but they have generously prepared a video reading for us. They are a spoken word poet, the author of Roadkill for Beginners, and the founder of Spoken Bird, Singapore's longest-running poetry open mic. Our final reader, Daryl Lim, is a celebrated poet, translator, and editor who was awarded the Young Artist Award in 2023, Singapore's highest honor for young art practitioners. His latest collection, Anything But Human, was a finalist for the Singapore Literature Prize. Without further ado, let me pass the time to Daryl Li.
Hi, thank you for having me here. I'm not really, as you might have heard, I'm not really a poet, so I don't know how I got into this. But thanks for having me. I wrote a piece which I have just been informed is pronounced as Deformations. And it's a piece in 5 parts, and it sort of cycles through the acts of creation and also this sort of familiar domestic environment. So I'll just get into it. Deformations. 1. You know, it's only when I really pay attention that I see the strangeness of these figures, that I begin to read their lines with any type of legibility. And I remember the shape that I had once conjured, stupidly in some naive attempt at fiction. A ghost story I had once written. It was mossy and green and damp. I wanted a ghost that looked barely even human. And as I look at these shapes, I think of how, in the moment, the writing resembles the art. An odd sense of déjà vu. Perhaps writing is merely a type of sculpture. It's all forms of living. An old echo in something new. But what a ghost, but the simple uncanniness of recognizing the familiar. 2. One day this shape will settle into my mind. The shape of your emptiness in these halls. One day, this light will paint only familiar shadows, and it will be as though things have always been this way. But until then, I cling to every echo, every whiff, every quivering contour, just so I remember the way things used to be. Just so I resist the difference of tomorrow and the quiet of night. Some mornings I listen to the refrigerator's slightly different hum within this slightly different cavity, and some nights I watch as the portraits pinch and twist as the photos turn strange. Some days, I wait for your image to appear across the mirror. A long time ago, I learnt the cliched wisdom that all love begins in death. But how strange this home has become. And I wonder, having lived so much and for far too long, how is it that I can still be surprised by pain? I don't know. But I would like to preserve the shapes of emptiness, the cancellations and negations, because I know that ghosts are just gentle shapes, just forms of love. May you haunt me longer. 3. I wonder what I look like to you. Perhaps a tired, frazzled thing, or perhaps something in the shape of a tumor. Will you do me a favor and carve me, chisel me, sculpt me, rearrange me, reconfigure me, reorder me into beauty, into sense, into some familiar human shape? 4. In the scariest scene of the movie, there's just knocks on the door, red lights, contorted faces, old faces, invading safe spaces. The lights turn blue, hands grasping, the horror of imminent death, the slow decay of time, the otherness of the ones closest to us. Then a gunshot, and then just smoke and darkness. How could so much dread occur in things so mundane? The limiting boundaries and the unfolding of infinite space. And I keep thinking of this moment as I watch Father's shape change after the incident. And I often wonder if it's just a matter of him getting older and the shifting dimensions of my perception, or the actual horror of the other. But here in this quiet home, there are precious few truths in the non-ending quest for connection, even between father and child. Above all, I know love is what defines us, even if we were never any good at it, even as time pushes us slowly and relentlessly apart. I embrace the gentle unknown of your person, your haunch silhouette, your weathered voice, the whole horror of you. 5. Arrange the flowers so that they carve into the blank space and time itself. Make them poems and songs and figments of life, and impart to me the rhythm of this dance and the pulse of your movements. Ceramics, you said, are the art of living deeply with the material, the pockets of emptiness, the careful entanglements, like the hollows on the back of your hand, the gaps in between your words. Weave into your charts and diagrams the chosen words and worlds that we share, that we could share. Librarian, archivist, historian, a tangle of two complex webs entwined, a map of us. Write with me, you said, in prose and poetry, ceramic, glass, paints and dyes, the language of Ikebana, light and shadow, sight and sound. Every space unnerves in its tedious sameness. Every place is the same until it encounters the deformation of you. Writing is a form of love. This I learnt as your hands joined mine, our voices echoing in this space, in the mundane ruptures of everyday time. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you, Masuri, for having us. I really resonated with this work because it is about queerness and low lighting and also the grotesque. And I wrote this poem about a very horrible time in my life, and it's called Safe as Houses, so content warnings for, you know, the usual sex, assault, homosexuality. Safe as houses. Whatever has no boundaries has no shape. Harry Frankfurt, American philosopher. For years I lived in a house on the street of the dead. The death houses on Sago Lane were made for the terminally ill and infirm in which to spend their last days. The National Library Board calls them abodes of last resort. I loved that Sago Lane flat and all the other rented doll houses that nested in it, a matryoshka of shoeboxes, their leases catching me in a draft for a roadmap to queer codependence. You know how it is with the gays, where like hermit crabs will make homes out of every bit of trash, the OG upcyclers. Discarded exoskeletons, now your ecosystem. My ex's moldy thongs on which I can no longer make out the word bilabong, becoming a support pillow on which to rest my dread. I told myself, I'm looking for found family, but really, I hoped to find a problem complex enough to distract me from grief. Because if you starve something long enough, it dies. My first time lesbian U-hauling wasn't so much domestic bliss as domestic blistering heat in a glorified storeroom, our single IKEA softwood bed frame under a sliding aluminum bathroom window frame installed on a false wall that looked out onto a real wall. We U-hauled our asses next to a shop house called Mad Nest, butchered into illegal partitions. Also with false walls, rife with cigarette smoke, techno-pop reverberating against Buddhist sutras, where a 75-year-old amulet seller who lives in the closet next to the toilet cheerfully accosts you with small talk on your way to shit and shower. The house supports no boundaries, only non-load-bearing false walls. Then I nested those inside a Juchiat walk-up where a drunken karaoke bar owner threatens me while I literally look down on him, an angel benevolently scrubbing dishes. I know he hates my off-key singing because he warns me, tomorrow you watch out. Where you from? What pass? Employment pass? Yeah, tomorrow you look URA say only 6 people under one roof. You watch out. So I watch out. I call the police because this is home where I know I must be, where my dreams wait for me, where each room is bigger than the last, nests within each other, placed in the box I name loss. And my girlfriend then, she lived inside all of them, and everything inside of her lived inside of her. For 6 years, I lived with a person who functioned as a drop-in shelter for diverse entities. Becoming accustomed to malevolent spirits was all part of my learning curve as in hospitality, as front desk staff at my ex's body, 2017 to 2023, which explains the gap in my resume. This role involved managing guest interactions with a demanding and often outright hostile guest clientele. Standard SOP includes saying, sorry, who am I speaking to again? And is there something you're looking for? And I think it's time for you to leave. Saka, from the Malay word pusaka, literally means inheritance or heirloom. It's quite common. What will you leave behind when you die? Some people receive property, a gold necklace, a book of recipes, debt. Some people inherit a host of spirit companions they must keep secret. Let's just say I signed an NDA, and today I do not know the exact head count of her entourage. Baby, she's a star. Her body is a vehicle with the keys still in the ignition and unannounced randoms taking it for a spin. I am the lone spectator at the scene. The Fast and the Furious has nothing on this. Slipping in and out of consciousness, call that drift, drift, drift. You can only make so many excuses that start with, she's not herself. I can only give you the link to a YouTube video called Parasite Praying Mantis, so you can watch the reluctant bouquet of horsehair worms bursting forth from its ass end, tactacular spectacular, when you submerge the whole thing in water. Of course, by then, the mantis is hollowed out. There's nothing left in it, not even the prayer. I couldn't submerge her in water, but I did my own tests. An essential oil diffuser, courtesy of Shopee, $5.90, filled with holy water, courtesy of the Catholic Archdiocese, free, created inflammation in her throat, swollen eyes, and a deep suspicion of any unmarked bottles around the house. I was so obsessed with the possibility of experimental exorcism that I forgot the expert statement. Was she possessed or just possessive? Were my variables too confounded? Maybe a toxicology report could have shown me that she was the toxic one. No need to make myself draw out the poison or the suffering. In this house, you could call me the sole bread loser. In this house, I was paying rent for 2, but in reality, we may have had more than 6 under one roof. Hello, URA? I count 4 distinct entities in her, discreetly plotting their hostile takeover. 4 is bad, but in time, someone tells me each of the 4 have 10 others who answer to them. So Google says, in a company, the ideal direct report number depends on factors such as the complexity of work, the experience of the team, and the manager's leadership style. 4 is bad, but you know what's worse? That even supernatural entities aren't spared from being middle managers. We could call it multi-level marketing, an MLM in a WLW. She always called me mommy, perhaps hoping to elicit the implicit, the patient, thankless labor of caregiving. The mother figure splits between where every desire is satisfied and nothing hurts, and me, the fucked up gaping wound that gnashes its teeth in the dark. Tell me I'm a bad mother and I will say thank you. I can't cook, I can't clean, but let me tell you how I stayed in this thing. Not by choice. Why do we say safe as houses? Home is the site of most accidents and many jump scares. I resented their ability to walk through walls, slip through the waking and the dreaming, pass in and out as they pleased, take up residence rent-free. Why come back so late? Think this body's a hotel, is it? If you think about it, an exorcism is just another kind of eviction. For future reference, if you ever find yourself in a codependent relationship with a bunch of demons, you can try cradling her, singing to her, playing the YouTube track St. Michael the Archangel Prayer long version full prayer on loop, making up litanies which will make you not merely a lapsed Catholic, but a prolapsed one. I drew up wards around our flat with salt, tried to have faith in boundaries. Whatever has no boundaries has no shape. But by then, I was used to getting my own trampled. This is home, surely, as my senses tell me. This is where I won't be left alone. At some point, I forget if the protective mantras I made up were for me or for her. If you starve something long enough, it dies. I would whisper it in her ear while she muttered miserable threats nightly in a ritual of time-honored torture known as sleep deprivation. This is not your struggle. Despite radiation, I highly recommend sleeping with your phone. The voice memo app is great for recording 3 a.m. snarling. Google can't translate the sleep talking in Javanese, in Indonesian, in some kind of made-up Enochian. I would trash talk them. I would say, you don't have a body, but I have a body, a real human body, and you guys have to share, and you chose that body. I swear by body positivity, but I'm just against polyembodiment. The real horror was defaulting to Catholic supremacy. The staunch among us would call it an exercise of faith. Have you ever retorted to a demon telling you, you're nothing, that you were, in fact, made in God's image and most cherished of all his creations, beloved by his mother Mary and even named for her? It's great for your self-esteem. It's great for practicing conviction. It's a great way to give yourself the ick. Other ways of re-gifting unwanted presents. Laughter, which is a release, but it has to be a full, deep-throated, unapologetic laugh, and I couldn't master that most nights. Climax, which is another type of release, because when you come, they will go, and much easier for me to master bait most nights. When her hands are around your throat, just bite your lower lip, writhe and moan, oh, yes, harder, please, while fighting the urge to laugh, but not in a full-throated way. And when it draws back from you, a look of genuine disgust on her face, hissing, you're sick, you will feel nothing but triumph. There must be an award for that, being kink-shamed by a demon. There are many reasons horror movie jump scares don't work on me anymore. If you starve something long enough, it dies. Homos should know well enough how to deal with phobia. What can I say to fear that hasn't been said to me? Perhaps, guests cannot stay overnight, or it's time for you to go. Perhaps we say nothing, only reaching to grasp our grief gently by the balls and let it lead us backwards out of the false walls, the death house, the abode of last resort. Thank you.
This is Stephanie Dogfoot, and this is my poem, Don't Ask Why I Only Remember the Bad Parts. The day I left home, I promised myself I would not remember the exact date. I've always been shit at goodbyes. There is only so much nostalgia a body can hold. I told myself it wasn't really a leaving. I was just taking a few things and putting them at a different address. The day I left home makes it sound like I was a teenage runaway. I was nearly 38. My first night in a new place, I lay awake getting used to the word mine. I lay awake just luxuriating in the knowledge that none of the noises outside my window had anything to do with me. That none of the screaming outside was my fault. The first day I woke up in a house I could call mine, all I could think of was how I could finally get that haircut I'd always wanted without having to hide it. I grew up in a single place, perfecting the art of subterfuge, learning by trial and error what to hide, what books, what letters, what diaries, what clothing, what girls, what stories, how to edit myself a bit more each year to make it through the front door. 4 walls full of love, of plants and animals, of cats, dogs, rabbits, fish, the best and the worst times, a clearly defined role of peacemaker, acts of service, not so much love language as currency, passive aggression, no, not so much family quirk as dialect. Some nights screaming the only way to make yourself heard, other nights armchairs pushed up against bedroom door the only way to make it stop. So much rage passed down from eldest daughter to eldest daughter to eldest daughter through floorboards, so many secrets stuffed into walls like lost hamsters, like shadows, like stray seeds. At some point the tendrils start climbing through the concrete. What no one tells you is that if you live somewhere long enough, you start to take root, whether you like it or not. At some point, I had lived there long enough, I started to forget what it was like to want to leave. There is only so much you can shrink and twist yourself to fit a place before you start to lose your imagination, before you start to lose dreams to paranoia. There is only so much nostalgia a home can hold before it starts closing in on you. There is only so much nostalgia a home can hold before it starts closing in on you. There is only so much home nostalgia can hold before the image starts to fold in on itself. I live on the other side of the island now with my books, my clothes, my plants, a partner, all of which I chose myself, and there's a deliciousness to hearing screaming in the night, knowing they have nothing to do with you, a luscious peace going to sleep without showering, sleeping with room doors unlocked. We do not shout in this house. We do not slam doors. We do not bang plates down to make enough noise that other people can hear how we feel about the things we will not talk about. The first day I woke up in a house I could call mine, all I could think of was how I could finally get that haircut I'd always wanted without having to hide it from anyone. But when I tried to ask for it, I realized I'd forgotten the words. Some nights I still lie awake, waiting for the other shoe to drop, the shadows from my childhood bedroom slowly taking up new residence in fresh painted walls, fingers grasping, whispering, who are you to deserve this, to run away, to abandon your parents, their beautiful home, my beautiful home, our beautiful home, full of love? What kind of a selfish asshole leaves their post as peacemaker, eldest daughter, to stop hiding, to start doing things only for themselves? Some nights I lie awake, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Any moment, something will burst through the door, carry me back, kicking and screaming to my childhood bed, the walls of this new home crumbling to the ground, a snake coiled up in my chest, fangs, pure guilt. There's only so much safety a body can get used to at once. Decades of old spirits don't get left behind that easily.
Hello, everyone. I'm the other slice of the Daryl sandwich today, and it's a pleasure to be here. I was very inspired by Masuri's work, and I'm very taken by the fact that the word haunt is an anagram of the word hantu, which is also ghost, and it's also an anagram of the word Tuhan, which is God. And in a way, I'm inspired by this kind of spiritscape that Masuri has made. And so my poem is called Hunting the Hantu, a Fever Dream. Skinny dipping in the aftermath of the sun god's slick popper party, I felt the acres of the beautiful and the damned wriggle like maggots in formaldehyde. I sloughed off the molten gold that cast me into an Oscar idol of delicious abandon. Hell was too tame, and so I made my way to the devil's private dining room. I became the main course, the dessert, the petit four, the cloying wine that sticks in your throat and ignites a fever that leaves you a beached whale dreaming of the last ice age. By the sticks you stretch me out and tickle me in all the restive borders of the flesh. Sell me by the carrot between hot cross buns, that murmur of the sugar-free atrocities of the last industrial revolution. All night the crows made love and turned the skies a jet black, darker than the heart of a mortgage banker. Have you smelled the putrefaction of midday contentment? How it smells like the cake your mother burnt when you were 7. Her eyes like coals that eat the epidermis pink. All day the stench of ammonia and bootleg Chanel No. 5 climbed the steep walls of our mother of pearl nostrils. Oh sister, as you cling on to the gleaming shards of the attempted 𝘩𝘰𝘸, or perhaps an ambitious bun cake, riddle me this. What were the secrets hiding in plain sight on father's lacy conscience? Why was the soup stiffened with the viscera of mammals who once screamed for their supper, always lukewarm? How was it that, when we most needed the lick of the rotan, that it eluded us, flitting like rabid squirrels before the monsoon? What is the price of rotting kailan? What is the price of the latest fat-burning moonshine? What is the price of class struggle? When at last the silky tofu strands of the aging evening press against our cracked faces, will we at last gasp with the finality of our genome? Family is 12 bags of dumb, sharp rocks. All of the days I worshipped you, like cinnamon loves an overturned, buttered slice of enriched white bread. I wish to kiss you like a clasp bites a belt, like how a cactus rattles the passing caterpillar. Love is the highest grade anxiety whose crystals I have chiseled from the eyeless chamber of my heart. I am craving for the textured, uncut noodles drenched in the foulest, darkest sauce this side of the straits. A rancid ketchup that will send my hairs dancing the cha-cha-cha and rake. Sorry, my screen just locked. And rake the cold slab of my languorous tongue. Sleep is a moldy fuzz that made its nest in the cut peach of my lung. All spidery afternoon, I watched him loosen his limbs in this sodden courtyard of my hubris. In the padded cell of my brain, I stretched him out and made him a scalding eagle, a sizzling pan of popiah skins, a fondue of no consequence, an agent of insouciance. I fried him with oddly specific ingredients, black fungus, blue pea flowers, the bones of those day's fish you only get in tins, which you imagine penniless pensioners chewing mournfully with the thinnest congee. The tears of hard men who only burble to the tunes of Ame. What was he doing? A vagrant without purpose, a splayed avian whose plucked skin boiled with the malice of noon. He dispensed justice to the weeping bougainvillea, the saucy ixora, the anorexic pigeon, while chewing up the starchy ice cream sticks, remaking them into a vast tower of indifference. I whispered my prescriptions to him, the antacids, the antifungal creams, the deworming potions, the foul poultices meant to draw out my terminal inversion. He said nothing. He always said nothing. Instead, he danced the dance of sixpence, foaming beautifully at the mouth. And when I turned away, there he was, bare-assed in my room, shimmering like a robbery target. I don't give a flatulent fig about your care, your tenderness, your middle-class grief, shrink-wrapped into neat, bled cubes. I have learned how to play this game of bluff, of hide and flee, of forget me always. The endless, pullulating crowd drinks me up, and I replicate like a retrovirus across the sagging body of the city. Down its bubbling flanks of terrazzo, its eddies of impossible longing, down escalators that lead to the unbearable truth that rubs its festering hind legs by the strip mine quarry where the prisoners cut each other into dependable spoons. Here I sink into the luscious mud and melt like ganache in a toddler's palm. Listen. Fire sends its final sputtering flare. The feast is over. Eat the plate. Become the sun. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our poets. To help us explore the themes of Masuri's work, I'm delighted to welcome our curators, 𝘚𝘈𝘀 and Angela Pinto, who will be in conversation with our poets and, of course, Masuri.
Cool. Hello, I'm Angela. I'm one of the curators of this work alongside Yen, who is here with us. I think that was a lot emotionally, and it was really nice to see the space occupied in the way that it is right now. I think it would be. I'm just going to start with a little bit of a thank you for everyone for being here. Also to our project manager, Ian, who is probably very nervous somewhere, seeing all of these people occupy the artwork like this. And of course, to Naomi for planning this entire thing, and then to our poets, who have taken on the challenge of putting words to something that both Mien and I have always felt could never really be described in any way. And we would like this session to be a little bit more casual, so if anyone really has any questions that they would like to ask the poets or us or Masuri, who's also here, please just raise your hand. I'm gonna just start with a very simple question to the poets about images. Like, what kind of images did you latch on to? Was it as you visited this space? Yeah.
Hi, I'm back. I came to see the artwork, I think about a month ago, or maybe a bit more, I can't remember. Anyway, the first thing that I remember feeling, and it's captured in the thing that I wrote, is, and I don't know if this was an influence, but was Mulholland Drive, the movie. And so that's why that I reflected on that quite a bit. In the end, I focused, I think, on three particular threads. And one of them is, as I mentioned, creation and writing. And I kept thinking about how this artwork was put together and how I, myself as a writer, how there are certain like parallels to the experience of just being in this space. And the second thread that I went along with was this idea of familiarity, or like echoes and ghosts and the like. And finally, the more maybe concrete aspects of it was grief and longing, I think. And combining the three, I think, was how I felt, I think, when I came to this artwork, because these are many familiar things given and a sort of uncanny shape, I think. And I imagine that inhabiting a space often is like the act of making art or like writing. And therefore it's called deformations, because you deform a space together.
Oh, hi. Yeah, what he said, but also the grotesque and you see the sequence and the lighting really gave me the sort of like kind of a nod to like queer nightlife and flamboyance, but also, you know, how oppressive the monstrosity is in kind of taking over the space and making its presence known. I think for me, I felt like it is like that, right? When you live in a space in which you try to make your home, and then you take with you everything that is with you. You don't leave it behind in the last house. You bring it in with you. You set it up next to your grandmother's table, and you sleep next to it every night. So I think that's what I was really responding to, the pervasiveness of the oppression and the sort of like half-seen images that are, you know, undeniably and inevitably your own monster.
Yeah, when I first came here to view the work, I have a very distinct memory, because I was with Masuri, and we were looking at this shower cubicle, which is behind you, and I spotted this tiny spider crawling down one of the shower screens, and it was not intentional. It was a chance spider. It was not part of the installation. It was a chance spider, and that image, I think, has stuck with me while writing this poem. So that's one big inspiration. I think the other inspiration was that as a child, I was always very introverted and quite sickly. So I was always in the room, right? And kind of, in a way, my whole life has been built around imagining things from the room, like a sick child confined in a room, dreaming up worlds that built on the words that I read in books and encountered on screens. So this was really, I think, I didn't feel this as unfriendly or forbidding. I kind of felt it as almost quite homely in a kind of a wonderfully perverse way. So I think that also fed into the poem.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. You know, I am a very, very shy person. Yeah. So I would like to say thank you so much for the recitations of your. When I read it at home, actually I was so touched by it, you know, and I've read it multiple times. Um, so to Daryl Lim, you know, that was a truly powerful and immersive recital. Thank you. The poem's journey through the spectral presence of home was profound. I was completely arrested by the contrast between the vast, desolate image of the beach whale dreaming of the last ice age and the intimately unsettling picture of the lukewarm soups stiffened with the viscera of mammals. Together, they create this incredible tension between immense inherited fever and the specific disappointment of family. It was a haunting exploration that I won't forget. Thank you, Daryl. To Marylyn Tan, thank you for that really darkly hilarious journey. The poem's central metaphor of codependent queerness as a supernatural haunting was pure genius. It was devastatingly relatable in its depiction of the exhausting labor of loving someone who lacks boundaries. And I'm in awe of how you balance the horror with sharp, brilliant humor. The journey to the final, powerful declaration of I want to belong, but not to you was incredible. Thank you for sharing such vulnerable and brilliantly crafted piece. I'm shaking like a leaf wind, huh? Stress.
Good, Masuri.
So Daryl, I also want to say that, your reading just now was incredible. Your poem left me thinking deeply about how love and loss leave their shape on us, how they deform our lives in ways that are both haunting and beautiful. The way you reframe ghosts as a form of enduring love and connected to the quiet horror of watching a person change was so powerful and true. It was a profound meditation on memory and connection, and I thank you for that. Yeah. And to to my dear Stephanie Dogfoot, your poem articulated something so profound about the aftermath of leaving a difficult home. That mix of heart-worn peace and the haunting, almost muscular memory of guilt. The line about realizing you lost the words to describe the haircut you wanted for so long just floored me. It speaks so powerfully to how we can internalize those constraints. And thank you, Stephanie. Yeah.
For a space that started out, a little bit brooding, dark, haunted, and ominous, actually, I feel a lot of love in the room right now. And yeah, I just want to thank Masuri for your responses and also, all the writers and poets. I know, Daryl, you don't consider yourself a poet, but it really was one thing to receive and read your scripts, and another entirely to hear your voices, animate your words. Angela already had that question about the inspirations that you had. My next question for you really is more about your approach to writing. Angela had shared that whenever we give tours for Masuri's work, it is often very difficult for us to think about what to say, how we wanted to convey the ideas behind the work. Firstly, because these are very personal narratives that don't belong to us. And secondly, we feel that this is an installation that commands presence, that I think demands your attention, to sit with it, to walk around it, and really feel it in your body, rather than to pick it apart and to analyze and examine it. And I suppose that is what the visual arts can do. It is a wordless exploration of whatever, an artist would like to convey. But as writers yourself, where words and language is your very currency, how do you approach it in a way to speak about things or feelings that don't really feel speakable?
Stephanie, where?
Well, we're not speaking right now. I think that poetry is its own language, right? So I mean, you have the Emily Dickinson quote, "Tell all the truth, but tell it slant." So I always try to return to that when I feel like something is not articulable with the language that we possess in the present moment, because I think poetry in throwing caution to the wind about the way in which words can be used and the way meaning can sort of like filter through and shift, kind of allows us to kind of reinvent the way that language is used. And then, you draw on kind of like, if for example, you were trying to describe to somebody colorblind the color purple, like what would you say? Is it like, oh, the way that velvet feels or something? I don't know, So I think the jig of it is just that poets are always like, well, things are like other things. And that's all it is.
I have 2 points to make. I think one, and don't take this wrongly, I often find that a lot of writing about visual art is kind of tries to explain it away, and therefore tries to interpret the art in simple boxes or categories that people can easily understand. And I kind of feel that I just don't want people like curators and gallerists to do that. And so actually this was kind of a stroke of genius, because you're trying to talk about the work in very slant ways, right? It's kind of, poetry is exactly the right medium to talk about art, because it doesn't try and deal with it directly, it doesn't explain it away, it sidesteps it, it creates new things out of it, and in that way you gain a greater appreciation of the art. So I think that is a brilliant experiment. So that's the first point. The second point I think is that actually I think of my poetry as quite like art in a way, in the sense of I don't need complete, if you've listened to the poem, I don't need complete comprehension of the poem. And I don't think, this is not like it's not like a IKEA toolkit thing, right? I don't want you to completely understand the poem, because you're not building your new a kitchen island or something. I want you to be able to not understand it, and in some ways appreciate it as you would visual art. So in that way, I think poetry is quite akin to art. Yeah.
I think of this in two sort of levels, and one of which was when you mentioned that there are many, I suppose, very personal and very individual sort of stories that are embedded into this art. But I think that's probably true of most artistic practices in a way, and it's just a matter of how obscure that fact is. And so in my own work, for example, I transport a lot of these to what seems like a very open arena, but I find that so in this piece, for example, I've written about my father, who I'm at the age where my father is, you can visibly tell that he's a different person from who he used to be or who I used to know. And that sort of story has no like direct resonance, I think, with anybody else. But then I think people, as with every piece of art, you trust the artwork. And so between like Masuri's art and my own writing of this piece, I think there's that in effect, that mechanism in effect, where you are sort of reflecting one another and finding your own sort of arcs, I think, to follow through. The other aspect of this, I think, is I'm not sure if this applies to other writers or if they think of it this way, but personally for me, I think the act of literature itself is somewhat ironic in that you are trying to express something that logically shouldn't be expressible in words. And I think that is, to me, the pursuit of literature. You're trying to capture something that escapes or like exceeds the words or the possibilities of the words. And I think so naturally that's the work.
Thank you so much for your responses. Would anyone in the audience like to respond or comment or have any questions for our writers or Masuri?
Okay, then I want to ask Masuri a question. Sorry, I know you're very shy. I'm wondering actually what you think the poetry brought to your artwork, and kind of like what aspects of it you felt would work well with words, because this is such a visual and spatial thing, right? Why choose that, and then after that say, oh, actually I want words too,
I think like, so sorry. No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, even when I did my media preview, I'm like this. Yeah, we had like 20 takes, but anyway. um, you know, for myself is that, making art in itself, I'm a very introverted person, when I make my work, I do it by myself, I do not have like my assistants or anything, I only talk to both of my curators, I think it's also because like I've always struggled to filter what I have to say, and I think there's always this effort to self-censor yourself, in a way that's why, like, I look at these sculptures, in a very abstracted way to, resist scrutiny and surveillance, like I can think, I can make, but sometimes I can't speak. I don't have that voice, and I've always loved to hear what people have to say. I think while making this, sometimes you always think that you are alone in this world, and you think that you go through it by yourself. So like having to hear different voices, makes me feel that I'm not here alone. Yeah. I hope I answer your question. Yeah.
Yes. I also feel not alone now.
I think that being said, Masuri is actually full of very beautiful words, and this weekend is actually the launch of the publication, and one of the spaces where you can see where Masuri's beautiful words come into play is in his text that he had written to us, and it was a very, very beautiful letter, I think, because we were in the process of also trying to understand the work without having it seen. We had only seen parts of it being built in separate occasions, and we only really saw the work come together when we were installing, and probably literally 2 hours before we had to do the media preview that it finally felt like it was complete. And so we did give Masuri the challenge of speaking to us, or writing to us to tell us what this work meant to him. And so there's a very lovely letter that's in the publication. And if you pre-order it this week, it's 10% off with free shipping. So that's my plug for today.
You can see a sample of the catalog downstairs, level 1 outside the engine room.
Yeah.
Because the first time when I was sharing about my work, I actually wrote them like a thesis paper
You
with
wrote us
like
an exhibition text.
an exhibition text, and I was such a control freak, and so I decided to write them an email, like a letter basically,
I guess if there's no questions, thoughts, offerings to the space that anyone wants to share with us, we are all going to be around for a little bit after this. Please feel free to come up to any of us if you want to say anything. But I think with that, we will close off today. And thank you guys so much for joining us in this space. It was really, really lovely to see it filled in the way that it is right now. And we're so glad that we did this. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Marylyn. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Naomi, for organizing this. Thank you so much. Thank you, Erica. And Marylyn, thank you. I'm really good at thanking people. Yes. But not talking.